Hello, junkies. Welcome to episode number 14 of the Nocturnal Throwback podcast. I just sent Mount Fitzroy off to the publisher. The final copy edit, which was painstakingly gone over by John Vizcara, our continuity czar. I am done reviewing that, exported it, spell checked it, shipped it off to the publisher literally 5 minutes ago. I am shot out. It has been a lot of days going over this thing, trying to get it done. At this point, one copy edit to go. The publisher's copy editor will go through it, and then I will make any corrections that are required. And then it's bingo. We're ready to rock and roll. Which publisher, you say? Well, we're not yet allowed to tell you. We will let you know as soon as we know. As soon as we have a release date, we'll be able to tell you. It's truly all very secretive. When you're dealing with me, you're dealing with top secret stuff. I really have a mind for this stuff. And you are dealing with someone who knows all the secrets. This book is 264,737 words long. Printed off on 8.5 by 11 paper, 12-point courier, double space, standard manuscript format, where basically one page of that is roughly equivalent to one page in a paperback. Mount Fitzroy is 1,356 pages. 1,356. That's almost 3 reams of paper. So if you've got some printer paper around, one of those 500 count printer paper packs, stack 3 of those together, and you're basically looking at Mount Fitzroy. Did I mention I'm shot out? I'm shot out. Let's get back to the Nocturnal Throwback podcast. Here we go with episode number 14, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the podcast novel Nocturnal, episode number 14. Nocturnal is a podcast-only novel you can't buy in stores and you can't peek at the end. Written and performed by Scott Sigler. More information and more free stories at scottsigler.com. This book contains adult language, mature situations, and lots of violence. Hello there, my damn dirty junkies. We got 28 minutes of story for you in episode 14. This is one of the most disturbing episodes yet, so if you are listening to this with your kids, this isn't for them. 2 quick things before we get into this episode. On February 19th, I am doing an online video chat with J.C. Hutchins to benefit the disabled American veterans. A company called Uvu is testing out their new video chat software. Hutchins and I are going to be on there talking about podcasting, fiction, or anything else you want to talk about. And when we do that, Uvu is going to donate 1,500 smackers to the disabled American veterans. So if you want to participate in that, you can go to myuvuday.com. That's myOOVOO day.com and sign up there. And you can learn more at scottsigler.com. Just go there, scroll down a couple of stories on the front page, and you'll see all about it. I'll have a little bit more for you at the end of the episode. Also at the end of the episode, we'll be talking about the Siglerpedia links to all the characters that are starting to show up in the Nocturnal episode show notes, also at scottsigler.com. That crap is really cool, and I think you guys want to hear more about it. But enough of that stuff. Let's get into episode 14.
Hello, my fellow junkies. This is Maya, also known as Nitwitch, your host for audio adventures in science fiction and fantasy storytelling on Nitwitch's Sci-Fi Fantasy Zone podcast. You can check out what's happening in Season 2 with the couple of new additions to our lineup, the Classic Zone episodes, and the monthly Zone Live talk shows. Head over to the website at nitwitchzone.com. That's KNITWITCHZONE.com. Back in the day, when I first started listening to podcasts, Scott Sigler's Earth Core was one of the first novels I listened to, and I have been absolutely hooked ever since, never looked back. Now it is with great pleasure, as an original junkie, to present to you the story so far. In the last episode, San Francisco homicide detectives Brian Clouser and Pookie Chang finally developed 2 key leads in a series of brutal murders. The first lead was the discovery of Francis Parkmeyer, a retired detective who had investigated a very similar string of murders some 30 years ago, a case known as the Golden Gate Park Slasher. They visited Parkmeyer in his retirement home, but the old man suffered from periodic dementia and was in no state to answer questions. The second key lead was a person of interest in the killings, 13-year-old Rex Deprovdichuk, a student at Galileo High. 4 murder victims were either students or faculty at Galileo, as were another 3 people who were still missing. Rex's school files showed he had fights or disciplinary action with all of the victims missing and dead. Despite the late hour, Pookie and Bryan were just about to visit Rex's house when they got a call from Chuck Baker, the manager of Parkmeyer's retirement home. Parkmeyer was awake and cognizant of his surroundings. If Pookie and Bryan wanted to have an intelligent conversation with the man, they needed to come quick. And now, the latest episode of Scott Sigler's Nocturnal.
Chuck Baker led Bryan and Pookie back to Parkmeyer's room. Baker walked faster than he had before, underscoring his warning that Parkmeyer might slip back into dementia at any time. The old man was still sitting in the chair, in the same position. This time, however, without the drool. "Mr. Parkmeyer," Chuck said, "how are you feeling?" "What?" The old man looked up, stared for a second. Then his face slowly filled with recognition. "Oh, hi, Chuck." "Hi." Chuck spoke slowly. It sounded almost normal, but was still a tone adults used when explaining things to little kids. "You've got some visitors today." Parkmeyer blinked, then turned to look at Bryan and Pookie. "You guys cops?" Pookie laughed. "That's great. Good to know it's so obvious that even in plainclothes Matlock here can spot us right off the bat." "Screw Matlock," Parkmeyer said. "He was better in the Andy Griffith Show." Chuck seemed infinitely pleased. "Well, this is wonderful. Mr. Parkmeyer seems to be having a good day. I'll leave you gentlemen to talk. Detective Chang, if you need me, just dial 0 on that phone." Half-bald Chuck Baker left the room, shutting the door behind him. Parkmeyer stared at the 2 men, squinted, trying to get a better look at them. "What can I do for you guys?" "I'm Detective Bryan Clouser. This is Detective Pookie Chang. We want to talk to you about a case you worked." Parkmeyer smiled. His white dentures blazed in the sunlight. "That's cool." It sounded weird hearing cool come out of an old man's mouth, but Bryan reminded himself that Parkmeyer had been a detective in the 70s, well over 3 decades ago, when he'd been in his early 40s. It made Bryan wonder if Pookie would still be using my nizzle when his time for senility came around. "What case?" "The Golden Gate Slasher," Pookie said. Parkmeyer's smile faded away, replaced by a look of deep sadness. "You know, I forget things sometimes. Except those kids. I can't ever seem to forget that." "We're investigating some murders that have symbols at the crime scene. We've heard the same symbols were found with the slasher, but we can't find anything in the case files." Parkmeyer's face wrinkled a bit, a thought passing through his mind. "Symbols? I don't quite remember." Pookie opened his manila folder and handed Parkmeyer photos of the Pano symbols, blood painted on a dumpster. Parkmeyer looked hard for a second. Then the photos started to shake. He handed them back to Pookie like they were acidic to the touch. "Yeah, I remember those." He looked back out the window. "Those were at the scene of the slasher murders?" Parkmeyer nodded. "Some of them, I think. I don't know for sure, but they were there. That's when everything started to go to crap back in those days. They started allowing anyone on the force, women, niggers, slants, all kinds of people." "Yeah, those slants are a real pain in the ass," Pookie said. "My partner was a gook, a woman gook, if you can believe that." Pookie Chang nodded. "Slants, gooks, bitches, it's a crying shame, really. Look, Detective Parkmeyer, there aren't any pictures of these symbols in the case files." Parkmeyer nodded. "That's because they don't want anyone to know." "Who doesn't want anyone to know?" The old man shrugged. "I never figured that out. I remember looking at files one day and the next, they're gone. Anything to do with those symbols." "Slasher files?" "Those and other cases," Parkmeyer said. "Older cases, murder cases, couple of gangland slings." "Gangland slings." Bryan paused for a moment. Could there be a connection to the missing gangsters? He'd get to that in a second, but first, he had to focus on the missing files. He didn't want to confuse Parkmeyer, didn't want to rush him. Mr. Parkmeyer, why would they remove those files? It's a secret, Parkmeyer said. He looked out the window onto the Van Ness traffic. Bryan looked at Pookie, who shrugged. They had to try something, try to get farther with the information. We know about Marie's children, Bryan said. Parkmeyer's head turned back, away from the window, to once again look at Bryan. Parkmeyer nodded. We're having trouble understanding a few things. We got people dying left and right. We need to stop it. Nothing you can do about it, Parkmeyer said. It's got to run its course. What has to run its course? Our job is to protect the public, sir, and the public is dying. We need to fill in the gaps. Parkmeyer rubbed his chin. Bryan could almost see the gears turning in the old man's mind. The gears might be missing a few teeth, but they were still turning. There's some bad people out there, Parkmeyer said. Real bad people. Sometimes the killers are smarter than the cops. Where we found those symbols. With a still shaking hand, Parkmeyer pointed to the photos in Pookie's hand. We found those. We couldn't find the killer. Someone else found the killer and killed them. The Savior. Parkmeyer nodded. Some of the people, some of the things that the Savior killed, well, they were murdering people. Horrible shit. Horrible shit, I tell you. Horrible. Like the Golden Gate slasher, but sometimes even worse. We couldn't stop him. We couldn't even find out who was doing it. We found bodies killed with silver arrows. Whenever we did, the murders stopped. So you got Savior out of the asylum, Pookie said. Parkmeyer nodded. Bryan and Pookie exchanged another knowing glance. It had been subtle, but Parkmeyer had just confirmed Jebediah Erickson was the Savior. Erickson was released to your recognizance, Bryan said. Why? The Savior hunts the killers. He hunts them down, and he kills them. So you just looked the other way. That's why we can't find any info on the silver arrows, because the department is covering up Marie's children and Erickson. But why the files? Bryan asked. Why did they remove the files? To keep it a secret. Just a few things, really. We didn't want anyone putting the pieces together and going after Erickson. But then more files started disappearing. I never figured out why. Like the gangland files. Parkmeyer nodded. Yeah, sometimes similar MOs. The symbols even showed up in a few. But files disappeared, photos disappeared, evidence vanished. Why? Why were those files removed? I don't know, and I kept it that way. People who looked into that too much, well, they weren't around for long. Bryan knelt down next to Parkmeyer's chair. Are you saying the department got rid of people who investigated Marie's children too closely? Parkmeyer shook his head. I'm not sure. Maybe someone with connections inside the department. What about the silver arrows? Why can't I find any info on that? We've looked everywhere. The only thing left is to go through back issues of the Chronicle. Don't bother. It's all gone. What do you mean it's all gone? There's got to be archived back issues, microfiche, all that shit they had before computers. It's gone. How could they get rid of all that? Destruction of private property? A campaign to eliminate all references at a fucking public newspaper? That's impossible. Who could do that? Parkmeyer smiled. His eyes cleared, and for a few moments, Bryan and Pookie could see the piercing eyes that had once been trained on suspects. 20 years seemed to fall off Parkmeyer in that second, and both men could see that once upon a time, this old man had been a nail-chewing badass. Because we're the police, Parkmeyer said. You're pretty goddamn naive for a detective. The police in this city are a brotherhood that goes back to 1849, when there was only 25,000 people in this city. Information is passed down from generation to generation. The police were here before the 1908 quake, and they've been here after it. The police have been here longer than any community group, any family, any ethnic associations, any company, any business. Longer even than any building that's still standing. They can get to anything they want. If there's dirt on someone, on a company,
You can bet the police either have that dirt or at least know about it. Dirt on publishers like Hearst, DeYoung, Spreckles. Dirt on reporters like Older and Twain. Dirt on regular people who worked at the newspapers, people you've never heard of but worked in the file rooms, the archives, the computer departments. Not all orders are written down in the police manual, kid. There are people in the departments that can get to anyone, anytime. And if you're not one of those people, then you'll never know who they are. What about the gangland slayings then? A serial killer is one thing, but why were the gangland files removed? Were the people covering up for Erickson also covering up organized crime activity?
Parkmeyer paused, then stared at Pookie, glassy-eyed, trying to think. His turning gears seemed to be slowing.
No, not the same people. I never thought that. The department covered for Erickson because he saved lives. I never found out who removed the... What did you guys want again? The gangland hits! You were talking about who removed gangland files related to the Nocturnals.
Parkmeyer looked up, his face a wrinkled mess of confusion.
Who are you? Have we met before?
His head dropped to his chest and lolled to the side. He started snoring almost immediately. The smell of shit filled Bryan's nose. He leaned away from the chair, stood, and walked to the room's door. 2 seconds later, Pookie smelled the same thing.
Oh, man! Oh, God! What do they feed people in here?
He walked to the phone and dialed 0.
Hi, this is room 113. Yeah, we got a cold brown poopy pants in here, and you better move stat. Stat! Thank you.
He hung up and made a beeline for the door. Together, they walked out of assisted living. Pookie seemed very excited.
See what I mean? Depends, baby. That's the money shot.
They got into Pookie's car. Bryan called Robin and got her voicemail. Robin, it's me. Listen, see if you can run DNA tests on the urine found at the crime scenes of the Russian gangsters and the Lipo Lounge. We think they may be related to the other killings. Get that done ASAP and then call us back. He hung up. We need to talk to Parkmeyer again. Hopefully catch him on another good day.
Yeah, of course. I'll come back tomorrow. May take a few visits. That guy is in and out.
Bryan rolled out his neck, trying to stretch away the tension. This is crazy. The force is covering up for Xavier because he stopped serial killers?
It doesn't matter, Bryan. It doesn't matter why Erickson is whacking these guys. Due process is due process. That's why we're here, to stop people from taking the law into their own hands, to be the glue that holds civilization together.
Well, I thought we were here for the chicks. Pookie nodded.
Of course, that's a fringe benefit, but if you could stop with the smart mouth for a second, this is important. People can't take the law into their own hands, Bryan. People can't operate outside the law. Due process, the right to a trial by your peers, that's what separates us from barbarism. Our country is founded on the principle that everyone has rights, even to criminals. I'd like to kill him as much as the next guy, but we can't go down that slippery slope. Not to mention, this benevolent cover-up of serial killers is also covering up gangland hits. Not murders, not serial killers, gangland hits, which are always done for the reason that one gangster wants to eliminate the competition, wants to move up.
Bryan nodded. Pookie had a good point.
So supposedly our police brethren and breathwomen are covering up for Xavier because he's good, but also covering up for gangland hits? Looks, smells, and tastes like bullshit. Do you agree?
You know what bullshit tastes like?
Bryan, I'm not kidding.
Bryan paused. He rarely saw Pookie this serious.
I'm asking you a question, Bri. I need to know where you stand on this. The police are not the Mahdi army, not the Gestapo, not Christians burning witches at the stake in the name of God. We are not judge, jury, and executioner, and we have to get to the bottom of this. Do you agree?
You know I have to figure out what's going on with the dreams. I'm in. You know that.
I want more than that. I want Erickson to go down, regardless if you do or do not figure out about your dreams. If Chief Zoe is really involved, I want to take her down as well. You are my friend, and I want to figure out what the hell is up with your dreams. But at the end of the day, I'm going after everyone involved in this. It's going to get ugly.
Man, this is really important to you.
Well, there is more to me than the startling good looks, the magnum-sized manhood, and the sheer intelligence of a love child begat from Marie Curie and Albert Einstein. It's shit like this is why I got into police work in the first place. This is gonna get nasty. And you know damn well that if we go after cops, we'll become the outcasts. We'll be hated in the department. Our jobs could be on the line. And if what Pookie Pants Parkmeyer says is true, our lives as well. I want you to understand what I'm doing, so you can't bitch and moan later when the popular kids won't let us sit at their table during lunch.
Bryan thought for a moment, but it didn't take him long. Pookie had already backed him when, by all rights, he should be sitting in a jail cell as a suspect for at least 2 murders. I'm in, Pooks. I'm with you all the way. Whatever it takes, man. We'll bring him down. Pookie lifted up his fist, then extended his pinky.
Pinky swear.
Come on, dude. Seriously, pinky swear?
If it worked in Stand By Me, it'll work for us. You pinky swear right now, goddammit.
Bryan extended his own pinky, and they shook. He felt like a dork. You know, for a homophobe, you sure do like touching other dudes. Pookie let go of the shake, then brushed his hands on his leg.
You know, Bri, your liberal stand on life can really ruin a precious moment.
Bryan nodded. Yeah, that it can. Let's get over to Rex's house. We got half the answers from Parkmeyer. Maybe we can get the rest from that kid. Rex, deprived of Chuck's breath, came in halting, quiet gasps as he reached orgasm, climaxing all over his hand and his bedroom floor. He let out a little moan as he came. He wiped up with a Kleenex, crumpled it, and tossed it on the floor. He was doing that more now, the jacking off, every time he had one of the really powerful dreams. The dreams where someone died. This time, he dreamed of Jay Parlar's death, dreamed of that stupid bully's eyes going wide as a pair of long, wide, offset, hairy jaws bit down on his throat. Rex had watched it and also tasted it, as if he were 2 people at once. It wasn't the first of the dreams, not by far. He dreamed of stalking all the Boyko assholes, both in daydream fantasies and in nighttime dreams, regular sleeping dreams. The dreams had gone on for a week now, starting right after the last beating the 4 of them had given him. He scratched at the edges of the cast on his left forearm. They'd given him that cast. They, the Boys Company assholes. It wasn't the first of the Boyko death dreams either, but it was the most intense of the 3 he'd had so far. First had been Alex. Rex had dreamed he'd hunted that fucker down in an alley and torn his arm clean off. Rex had woken up with a boner, the first of his life. He knew what boners were, of course, but his first one shocked him a little, simultaneously thrilling and terrifying him. Thrilling him because he'd wondered if he would ever get a boner. That's all the guys in school talked about, boners and pussies and girls, and Rex was late to the party. He was starting to think that his puberty wouldn't come at all, just another facet in his freakness. Terrified him, because even though it was his first boner, he was pretty sure murder dreams weren't supposed to give you wood. Not unless there was something wrong with you, like you were Charlie Manson or something. The next day, Rex had seen the newspaper in the metal rack, the headline screaming the murder of Alex Panos. And Rex knew he had somehow caused Alex's death. He'd drawn Alex's murder, and Alex wound up dead. Rex still didn't know how it worked, and it still sounded crazy. Crazy ain't crazy if it's true, right? He had felt alive, confident for the first time in his life. His hated enemy, the boy that made his life a living hell, was dead. Rex had wondered if he could make it happen again. Then came the second boner, 2 nights later, when he dreamed of Paul Fisher, that rotten fuck. Got what was coming to him, Paul Fisher did. Rex remembered cutting him in the dream, nearly gutting him, before the slippery fucker threw himself off the roof. Rex had wanted to follow, had somehow known jumping 3 stories to the ground would be no biggie. But there was someone down in the alley, someone who smelled like a cop. Rex realized he shouldn't know, couldn't know, what a cop smelled like. But in his dreams, he did. Smelled like steel and gun oil, testosterone, coffee. Then more drawings, more dreams, more deaths, more boners, more jacking off. Solar, telling, wicks. And now, Jay Parlar. Jay, the one who had brought him down so they could pin him, so Alex could break his arm.
Rex dreamed of Jay's death, dreamed of tearing Jay's throat out with his teeth, dreamed of the taste of hot blood and of chewing, of swallowing parts of Jay. That had been too much. Rex awoke, his boner so hard it hurt, so on fire he couldn't keep his hands off of it. Jacking off was supposed to be bad. His foster mother Roberta had told him so, but his hands just moved of their own accord. He'd lasted only a few seconds, and during those few seconds, his mind still tasted Jay's blood. His eyes saw Jay's terrified expression as his throat was ripped from his body. Another breeze brought him back to reality. Why was his window open? It was fucking freezing outside. Besides, an open window in his neighborhood, in Chinatown, well, that was like asking someone to kick your ass, steal your money, and then stab you just for funsies. Rex walked to the window to close it. But something was out there. Not someone, something. 4 somethings. Packed into the narrow alley. 3 somethings, because the word people didn't really fit. 3 somethings holding a terrified, bloody kid in a tattered, crimson Boston College jacket. Rex knew he should be afraid. He knew, somewhere, he should be crapping his pants and diving for the phone, hoping to punch 911 before these things brought him down. But he wasn't afraid. Not in the least. He wasn't afraid because he recognized all 3 of them. Recognized them from his dreams. Recognized them from his drawings. "Hello, Sly," Rex said. "He knows my name," said the first something, the one that had a smiling snake's face. He looked like a bodybuilder covered with a rotting gray blanket, thick form hidden beneath the moldy fabric, hidden except for the pointy green face, the yellow eyes with the angled black irises. "It's him. How could he know my name if it's not him?"
"It's him,"
whispered the second something.
"It's him. I can smell it."
This one was bigger than Sly. Well, taller anyway, and looked muscular, but not as muscular as Sly. This one was also covered in a gray blanket, threadbare, a slightly different shade than Sly's. There the resemblance ended, because this one had a hairy face and long, offset jaws, like a dog with the lower jaw offset to the left. Pierre, Rex knew. He knew. It was Pierre, the one who had killed Alex Panos. Pierre's long pink tongue lolled out the right side of the cockeyed mouth. This one held tight the boy in the crimson jacket. One huge hand clamped over his chest, the other clamped over his mouth, preventing him from screaming. "My king," said the third something, in a tone that hinted the third something could barely believe it. The third something was the biggest of them all, thicker, taller, and hence should have had a deeper voice. Yet the voice was tiny and thin. Rex quickly understood the reason for the thin voice, because it was actually 2 somethings. One, a man, a massive man, like one of those WWE guys, with a tiny head the size of a large grapefruit atop a thick neck. The other something rode on the first one's shoulders. This one had a tiny, shriveled baby's body, but with a huge man-sized head. It had no legs. Instead, a long, strong tail that wrapped around the thick neck of the massive man. "I recognize you, but I don't know your name," Rex said to the big head. "Why not?" "I have not fulfilled your will as much as Rex and Pierre," the big head said. "I am Servo, and this is Fort." The end of his tail tapped against the big one's barrel chest. But it wasn't just Sly and Pierre and Servo and Fort. There was the kid in the Boston College jacket. Despite the blood all over the kid's face, Rex recognized him immediately. Isaac Moses, the 4th member of the Boyko Assholes. The somethings had done a real number on Moses. Rex had seen Isaac Moses, and Isaac Moses' fists, 1,000 times, many of them up close and personal. In all those times, Isaac sneered, smiled, looked angry, looked at Rex like he was nothing more than dog shit on the bottom of a shoe. But not now. Now, Isaac looked scared, terrified. And his eyes were pleading for help from someone, anyone. Pleading for help. Help. From Rex. As if Rex would ever help that motherfucker. "We have waited for you our whole lives," said the big head. "We have always waited, and now you are here." Rex felt something in his chest. Something warm, glowing. He'd never felt it before. It made him smile. "What do you guys want?" Rex asked. "We want you," Servo said. "We want you to lead us out of bondage." I'm 13. I don't know much about that kind of thing." All four of the somethings smiled in unison, even a tiny smile from the one with the grapefruit head. Rex thought Pierre smiled. The corners of his long, hairy mouth shrank back, like a panting dog. "We believe that you do know," Servo said. "You were born knowing how. You just haven't realized it yet, because you're a ringer." "What's a ringer?" "We will talk of this later. We have come to take you home." But I am home." "Are you?" Sly said. "Does this place feel like what a home should feel like?" Rex had expected his voice to be a hiss, his S sound slithering out with a forked tongue, but it didn't sound like that at all. He sounded more like a game show host. Rex started to say his favorite 3 words, the words that came out of his mouth constantly, "I don't know," when he realized that he did know. This place had never felt like home. None of his foster homes ever had. He hated his foster parents, his foster mother in particular. Regina. What kind of a name was Regina anyway? Always yelling, always talking about discipline and structure. "No," Rex said. "It doesn't feel like home." "Come with us," Sly said. "You belong with us, my king. We will protect you." Protect me? Pierre gave Isaac a little shake.
"Protect you from prey like this. No one is ever gonna fuck with you again."
The warmth in Rex's chest expanded. It swelled up, spreading through him, made him almost cry. "If I go with you, when do I have to come back?" Servo smiled. "Never. You never have to come back here. We're taking you home." The words were too much. Rex did start to cry, just a little. He pointed to Isaac. "What about him?"
"We killed your enemies. We saved this one for you. Shall we kill him for you, or would you like to do it yourself?"
Fort held out a massive hand, a hand as big as a side of spare ribs. In it, he offered a long knife. Rex felt his dick stiffen again. Isaac Moses now knew what Rex had felt like for the past 5 years. Isaac Moses knew what it meant to feel helpless. "What about the others?" Rex said, still staring at the knife in the impossibly huge hands. "What about the others that I want them to die?" Sly smiled, his snake face splitting even wider than it had before. His yellow eyes crinkled in delight. Rex wasn't surprised to see a forked tongue sneak out of the face, trace across the left side of the pointy mouth, flick up and over the left eye, then slide back inside. "We are the king's soldiers. We kill whoever the king tells us to kill." Rex wiped away the tears. He couldn't cry, not in front of his soldiers, not in front of his family. Michael Corleone would never cry in front of the family. "We don't have much time, my king," Servo said. "We must leave quickly. Shall we sacrifice this one for you?" "No," Rex said. "I'll do it myself." He reached out and took the knife, then looked right into Isaac's wide eyes. "You filled my life with pain. Now I'll do the same for you." Rex started with his arms. Isaac's eyes widened even farther, and he tried to scream, but only muted, muffled sounds made it past Pierre's hairy hand. There you go, junkies. I hope you enjoyed episode 14. Things are starting to get a little interesting for Rex. He's been bullied his whole life. Now here he is, stumbling into this kind of absolute power situation. And as we can see, he's not really handling it in a civilized manner. But what is civilization to a kid that has just been ostracized, beat, tormented his whole life? He might have a different perspective than you have. Of course, he also now has access to Marie's children in a way that he never could have possibly imagined. So how he's going to handle that will be pretty cool. Now, as I may have mentioned once or twice or 17,000 times, my hardcover debut, Infected, comes out April 1st. A great number of you have gone out and pre-ordered this on Amazon.com. And that's awesome. If that's how you like getting your books, wonderful. But what I'm learning from Crown is they have pre-sold so many copies of these books into stores, Borders, Barnes & Nobles, Powell's, other bookstores, that we really need to make a splash at the actual physical brick-and-mortar bookstores. So those of you who don't prefer to buy your books on Amazon, by no means feel compelled to do that. We're not going to make a run at the Amazon charts this year because that actually would get in the way of selling the books at Borders and Barnes & Noble. So all y'all, get in your calendars the week of April 1st. Starting April 1st, the couple days after that, that is the time to get to your local bookstore and to buy that sucker. It can be the big chains, it can be the independents. The more physical books I move out of stores, the closer we are to the true Sigler ascension and your future Dark Overlord taking over the planet. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And if you have your copy of Infected in your hands when the tanks roll through town, it's a pretty good chance that you'll be alive while your neighbors are blown to crap. So let's talk about this My Uvu Day. It's another crazy online gadget. It's a video chat tool so that you can just log onto your computer. You can use the camera that's built into your computer, have kind of video chat conference panel up on your screen, and you can have a video conference with up to 6 friends, maybe even more. I'm not really sure how it works yet. And everybody's on the screen talking away. It's kind of cool. I have played with it. But what's really important is the company, Uvu, that's putting this thing together wants to make a big splash and let people know about their new tool. They're using podcasters and bloggers to do that. They have contacted me. I've contacted JC Hutchins, and JC and I together are going to put this thing on, and the Disabled American Veterans gets $1,500. That's kind of cool. So what we're doing is Tuesday, February 19th, starting at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, the Hutch and I are going to be on. We're going to be talking to people, and it's just an online video chat. We're probably going to talk about podcasting fiction, tips and tricks, what to do to go about doing that if that's something you're looking for. But if you're not into that and you just want to sign up, just do it. Just go to myuvuday.com. That's myuvuday.com. And you can sign up for this chat. If you sign up or not, I would encourage you to go check out the Disabled American Veterans and see if that's something to which you might want to make a contribution. Hutch and I are very apolitical about this whole thing. It's not about politics. It's about the men and women who have sacrificed a part of their life in order to serve the country. For whatever reason they wanted to serve, it's irrelevant. They went out to serve us Americans. They were injured. Now they need a little bit of help taking care of things. So that's what Disabled American Veterans is about. You can learn more about this and about the charity at scottsigler.com. You go there. If you scroll down a few of the blog posts, you'll see the logo for Disabled American Veterans. You'll see links to that. You'll see explanation talking about what My Uvu Day is all about. Maybe you can sign up, and if you do, I will chat with you then. There's only a limited number of seats, however, so if you want that, you better get over there pretty quick. Lastly, for episode 14, let's talk about the wiki, the Siglerpedia. At scottsigler.com, under the Crackhouse menu at top, you will see the wiki link, the Siglerpedia link. What's been going on there is industrious junkies have been going out and filling out information on all of the characters, a lot of the situations, a lot of the backstory on Nocturnal. It's like there's this whole primer for what every character is, what they look like, what guns they choose, what they like to do, who dated who, etc. It's awesome. And I have not filled in one friggin' thing on this whole thing. It's all been junkies who've done all the work. So those of you listening to this who just get it in their feed and never go to scottsigler.com, you're kind of missing out. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on there. But when you go there, you'll see the most recent episode at the top of the page. You'll see links to the characters in those show notes. If you click on that, you'll get more information on the character. And it's a wiki. Those of you who don't know what wiki is, it's an open source repository for information, which means you can go in and add information or correct information if something's wrong. Say there's a line in there that says Brian Clauser is a 4'2" midget. Well, you know he's not a 4'2" midget. So you can change that. So I'm extremely excited about how many junkies have gotten into this, how much information is starting to be collected there. If you hear something in an episode that you're not really sure you understand, you can go to the Siglerpedia, type that phrase or that name into the search field and see if it's there. And if it is, you get more information. If it's not, hey, fill the damn thing in. So that's all for this week, junkies. I hope to talk to you on myuvuday.com when I and my nemesis, JC Hutchins, will be doing a vidcast And I hope you get a chance to check out the Siglerpedia. Go to scottsigler.com. That's where all your goodies are at. And remember, April 1st, get thine asses into the bookstores. Start moving some hard copies of Infected.
You have been listening to Nocturnal, written and performed by Scott Sigler. For more information, go to scottsigler.com. All music in this podcast provided by Uncrowned off their album Devils and Angels, available now at the iTunes Music Store.
Is it